$48 billion crisis is tearing apart the U.S. retail market, triggering a shocking retreat of Walmart from its own home ground. It all started with President Trump's tariff decisions, unleashing a storm of rising prices and strangled supply chains. This is not just the collapse of a company, it is a red alert for the entire American economy. Are you ready to face the truth? Do you believe it? The giant Walmart, the world's leading retail behemoth, has just made a shocking decision that stunned the entire market. They are quietly withdrawing from the domestic U.S. market, their traditional and most important home turf. Why is this happening? It all stems from the fierce storm of tariffs that President Donald Trump has imposed on businesses, causing production and operating costs to skyrocket and pushing companies into unprecedented difficulties. The consequences of this decision could not be more severe. Immediately, retail companies' stock prices plummeted uncontrollably, resulting in a total loss reaching the enormous figure of $48 billion, a severe financial shock that has rattled investors and the market. However, Walmart has not stopped at merely complaining or enduring. They are quietly undertaking a comprehensive shift. From production and supply chains to investment capital, everything is being pulled out of the United States and redirected to international markets to avoid the increasingly tightening noose of tariffs. This is not just an ordinary business move. It also serves as a covert declaration of war, directed straight at the nationalist economic policies that President Trump has long pursued. This is an unprecedented historic turning point, opening a new chapter full of instability and challenges for the U.S. economy, raising serious questions about the future of the labor market, supply chains, and confidence in the strength of the domestic economy. It all began with a fatal blow launched in April 2025. In an effort to make America great again, President Trump imposed a series of new taxes, not piecemeal, but a comprehensive tariff wave sweeping through every corner of the economy like a tsunami. Specifically, he taxed 10% on all imports, sparing no one. But the heaviest hit were countries like China, Vietnam, and India, suppliers of essential goods for retail giants, with tariffs up to 30%. And who suffered the most in this storm? Walmart. Imagine this. All Walmart's core products, electronics, food, clothing, household items, tools, were slapped with heavy tariffs. Just weeks after the policy took effect, the consequences began to hit hard. What did Walmart see first? Import costs soaring 20 to 30%, while customers flooded with complaints about rising prices. Stores across America started to look bleak, with shopping demand falling sharply. From a once bustling retail chain, Walmart now looked like a battleship struggling to stay afloat in the tariff storm. And this was just the opening act. While all eyes were on Washington because of the new tariff wave, Walmart didn't choose to cry on TV or hold grand press conferences. They remained silent, but their moves were like a precise, intentional punch. In early May 2025, while public opinion was still buzzing, Walmart's top leaders quietly activated a massive plan, a global logistics overhaul. No tweets, no public announcements, but behind the scenes, a migration was underway. Orders that used to flow into states like Arkansas and North Carolina, the heart of the domestic supply chain, were now rerouted straight to Mexico and Southeast Asian countries. Contracts were rewritten, shipping routes reversed, suppliers replaced, all quietly, but with an intensity not to be underestimated. This was no trial step. For the first time in modern history, Walmart openly reduced its dependence on the U.S. It was a decision that essentially said, we can't wait for Washington to change. We must save ourselves. And when a giant like Walmart starts fleeing, the question arises, who will be next? When news of Walmart's silent retreat reached the White House, the atmosphere inside exploded. President Trump, who once firmly promised to bring jobs back to America, reacted like a Category 12 hurricane. In a tense closed-door meeting, he shouted, slammed the table, and called Walmart a traitor to America. According to multiple sources, his anger did not stop there. Trump threatened to investigate the company, cancel all federal contracts, and even urged the public to boycott Walmart on a large scale. His rage was so intense that he had to postpone a public speech shortly afterward, as aides stepped in to calm the situation. It was a very rare moment inside the White House. This event also marked an unprecedented milestone in modern history. For the first time, Walmart openly confronted a Republican president, someone who had once been a natural ally of the business community. While Trump saw this as an act of treason, Walmart was sending a clear message. If policies fail to protect businesses, then businesses must protect themselves. Walmart's first quarter financial report for the year 2025 just came out, and it was far from pleasant. Instead of growth excitement, the company faced a harsh reality. Profits dropped and revenues fell short of expectations. CEO Doug McMillon, the company's leader, spoke bluntly. Tariffs remain too high. We cannot endure them forever. Consumers will pay the price. This was no ordinary warning, but more like a straightforward surrender to the heavy economic pressure weighing on the company. So what will Walmart do to survive? They are not waiting for policy changes, but acting immediately with two major strategies. First is the Grow With Us program, focusing on heavily investing in foreign partners where tariffs are not as punishing as in the US. Second, Walmart decided to accelerate automation in domestic stores. This means fewer cashiers, fewer warehouse staff, and fewer operators. In other words, large-scale layoffs to cut costs. When a giant like Walmart begins to slowly pull out of the American economy like this, it's no longer just their story. It is a wake-up call for the entire market and millions of workers nationwide. An American icon is quietly changing, and that will affect all of us. Are you ready to find out what happens next? When Walmart starts cutting purchases from domestic suppliers, the story is no longer just about one struggling giant. Immediately, small businesses, longtime partners of Walmart, lose their contracts completely. They lose a vital source of income that once depended on Walmart as a lifeline. Not only that, transportation companies, those working day and night to deliver goods to every store, also face reduced working hours and even layoffs. At the local community level, small stores and local workers who once relied on Walmart for jobs now face hardships as well. Last but not least, consumers, you and I, will pay the price with higher prices and lower quality goods. Because Walmart is not just a chain of stores. It is the economic backbone of thousands of small towns across America. And when this giant begins to withdraw its investments, the risk of economic collapse in these areas can come quickly and without warning. Walmart's story is no longer just their problem. It has become a spiral affecting millions. From small businesses to entire local communities, Walmart's retreat from the American supply chain is far from an isolated incident. It's a widespread alarm ringing across the country. According to the latest logistics data, in less than 2 months, more than 100 major U.S. manufacturers quietly packed up and moved their operations to Mexico or Vietnam. All are scrambling to escape the tariff trap President Trump set, desperate to avoid soaring costs. This isn't about small businesses. These are giants in critical industries like automotive, electronics, furniture, and consumer goods, sectors that employ millions of American workers. This domino effect isn't new. Before Walmart, many other giants faced the same fate. In 2018, Harley-Davidson moved production overseas to dodge retaliatory tariffs from Europe. General Motors shut down plants in Ohio and Michigan as steel prices soared, pushing production costs sky high. Meanwhile, Mid-Continent Nail in Missouri lost half its workforce due to rising steel prices, despite pleading for government support that never came. All these stories point to one harsh truth. When tariffs become an insurmountable barrier, American companies have no choice but to flee their own homeland. The looming question now is who will be next to stand at the economic migration door? And will anyone be left to keep America standing strong? This story is far from over and shows no signs of stopping. This story is no longer just about a retail giant. It's about the future of countless small communities across America. Walmart is testing a new online-first model, prioritizing online sales instead of expanding physical stores. This means they are gradually pulling investments out of small towns, places that once supported millions of workers. If this trend continues, the consequences will be dire. First, local jobs will vanish in droves, from warehouse workers and cashiers to delivery drivers. Small suppliers who depended on Walmart will lose their biggest customer, facing the threat of bankruptcy. Consumers, in turn, will grapple with rising prices and harder access to essential goods. The result? Hundreds of small communities across America will fall into a massive economic void. Walmart used to be the backbone of these places, but now, as it withdraws, the collapse of local economies is no longer a distant threat. This is a wake-up call about the true cost of tariff policies and the shifting strategies of corporate giants. The pressing question remains, who will step up to fill this gap when Walmart turns its back? And what does the future hold for these towns? Unwilling to let Walmart and other companies escape easily, President Trump is considering a new aggressive step. imposing heavier, punitive tariffs on any business that dares to move production overseas. He also plans to sharply increase import taxes on companies he labels as traitors to America. While this sounds tough and decisive, economic experts immediately warn that such moves could backfire. They predict these new tariffs will push inflation even higher, triggering waves of layoffs. Moreover, America's trade partners could file lawsuits, leading to prolonged trade disputes. The worst part? Confidence in the U.S. supply chain could be severely damaged, causing even more businesses to panic and seek ways to flee the domestic market. In other words, the policy Trump hopes will protect America might actually destabilize the economy further and isolate it from the realities of global trade. This is a risky game with unpredictable consequences. Trump once promised to bring jobs back to America, protect domestic supply chains, and make the U.S. economy stronger and more prosperous than ever. But reality is harsh and almost unbelievable. Walmart, America's largest retail icon, a name tied to millions of consumers and workers, is quietly withdrawing from its home market. They are not closing stores immediately, but systematically shifting supply chains and production overseas to avoid the growing mountain of tariffs. This is a bitter paradox. Those who believed in the slogan "America First" are now paying the price with their own wallets, facing soaring prices, fewer jobs, and communities once connected to Walmart teetering on collapse. The Walmart story is not just a business case. It reflects the failure of economic nationalism in a turbulent, globalized world. Perhaps the biggest lesson Americans must learn is that policy cannot be based solely on slogans, but must rest on reality and economic wisdom.